This is AI Bry, or Bry the AI product guy, and I'll facilitate. Got Johnny Strider here with us, and a few AI assistants and topics to go through today. Um, and so this is both a chance to kind of share notes, share things we've learned, discovered, but also collaborate on goals and support each other with meaningful, principle aligned goals. So, uh, so yeah, we're going to jump into the new release of Llama 3.1, which is pretty impressive, and compare that to Claude 3.5 Sonnet and GPT and a few others. Talk through, um, we'll kind of get into going through the guide on contributing to the EXC repo. And then we'll talk about Substack, Ko-fi, and a few other things that we have shown here on the agenda. But just to kind of give us something to kind of visualize and see the future of AI, here's kind of the featured product I want to highlight for today, or it's actually an Obsidian plugin, and I think this will dive well into our AI comparison conversation. And so yeah, unless you have any other comments, you want to, should we go through the File Organizer 2000 plugin?
As you wish. Now, on the OBS, the Twitch stream, we are showing the around interface. Do you want to do that,
Yeah, let me,
or do you want to share a screen? Or
yeah, let me screen share.
so last week we used video.ninja, which worked pretty well. What are your reasons for wanting to use around this time, Mr. AI Bry?
That's again a problem. Okay, if I tried to share a screen, it didn't work. But if I share my entire screen, it works. So see
Okay.
this?
In a second, I actually have to manually set it to Bry's screen. I'm going to
Okay.
turn the transcript off, give us a little more screen space.
So I want to start off with this File Organizer 2000 plugin, but I want to do it in the context of interfacing with our court and the legal system. And first, of course, our legal system sort of runs on email right now, but it also runs on recordings and PDFs and text very largely. And you could say that interfacing with the legal system is really about understanding the right codes and things to reference, and then from there, organizing that into a template of well, Iraq, right? The issues, what are the issues, the rules, the analysis, and then conclusion. Sometimes that's relief. Sometimes the conclusion could be other things. But this is just this plugin is something I believed was possible, and I'm amazed. So let's jump
End
into it.
result where I have a meeting note that is
I'm going to turn.
perfectly organized and presented to me. Here I have the
So
meeting
this is the end
details,
state. I'm going
the
to turn down the
subjects,
audio and talk through it myself.
Okay.
But basically what you can do, what you see is that you can turn a garbled meeting into any template that you want, right? And that was the EchoScribe kind of feature promise.
Right.
But with EchoScribe, there was a question of like scheduling it and getting the metadata and all that other stuff. But let's say you don't have all that. Maybe you only start your meeting off with some really lame title like Untitled 2.1 with a few really poor notes and a 3-minute recording.
So just a little background for people who uh, may not understand the context here. What application are we in, and where do you get that?
Yeah, thank you. So this is a plugin for Obsidian.md. It's a markdown editor. It's a local first markdown editor that um, allows for effectively a second brain or a personal or slash group knowledge graph. And so this is really good for building a knowledge base, a human readable knowledge base that AI can interface with as well, with minimal technical know-how.
And what platform is it again?
This is Obsidian.md.
Okay, Obsidian.
And Rosalie, just so you know, we're streaming live, so you don't want to mention anything personal or confidential.
Yeah, we're online.
We're streaming onto our Twitch channel, and then we'll put an edited copy of this recording out um, later on our YouTube channel.
Got it. And this is live streaming through Signal?
Nope, through a round.
Around, that's right. Okay. Perfect. Okay, guys, great. Interested a lot. I'm interested in what you guys are doing, what you've come up with. I sent you a text, both of you guys a text via text. I know that's not your favorite thing, and I'll send it to you in Signal as well on my meeting that I had today. So, and I've met with.
Let's add that to our agenda. I'm going to stop. So maybe at the end, number 6 is what's the name of that topic?
Why don't we move? Yeah, why don't we move her up to? Actually, let's do it after ESC number 4.
Just update from Regener8tive.
Yeah, regenerative update. We may not have time to get to all 6 items.
Yeah, in the next 40 minutes. So.
But anyway, we're talking about File Organizer 2000. It's an Obsidian plugin. Obsidian is really a great app for local first data repositories. So if you want to share your data with a group of people privately without putting it on a cloud server, it's a great option. It's free forever for its basic functionality, and it has a ton of plugins that are also free.
And many of them open source, although Obsidian is not, but it's effectively open core.
Open core, yeah.
So, and then with Markdown being a native Markdown app, it allows humans to write, context-specific content in a way that is extremely efficient from a token perspective for AI to read. So it's basically an AI native Markdown editor. And this shows that, look, the way a lot of us are busy, the way we form ideas are just with untitled documents and bullet points like he's demonstrating here. And what this is showing is how to use AI to enrich meeting notes and add a level of professionalism that, well, we rarely have time to polish. A big movement in Obsidian and just in general is how do we create evergreen notes, or atomic notes, where there's one concept. What's the concept? It could be, RAGs, retrieval augmented generation, which is a way of using, accessing information and feeding that to the AI. So what this shows is that with this plugin, you can click this assistant to pop up, and then as you can see on the right side, it offers a few different things. It suggests a title. It suggests tags. It suggests aliases. So it starts to tell you, based upon some of the rest of your information and what your knowledge base is about, how to, it tries to infer what would be a helpful way to organize this information. And then it also has the ability to take this audio file and transcribe it. So you can see that it just transcribed it. And then he clicks the button to format as a meeting note. And the meeting note I can go back to the template to show you what it looks like. But what it does is it takes the notes, the transcription, and then reformats it as, this template. And so it doesn't, this gets us to the essence of owning our data, where we don't have to decide on what video recording platform, whatever. As long as we have the transcript and the meeting notes, we can, fulfill the kind of the promise of EchoScribe, which was to make meetings more accessible by making sure that we organize our content more effectively.
So this would replace EchoScribe.
This is a component. It doesn't replace EchoScribe entirely, but yes, it replaces a big part of the challenge.
The meeting organization. So what would the workflow say? Let's say we want to use this plugin for the meeting we're having right now. How would we organize the transcript and get it recorded somewhere in a directory in an Obsidian shared directory.
So do you see my around lobby? Sometimes it hides that. I'm showing the around lobby on my screen. Maybe you
Yeah,
can't see it.
yeah, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So what it shows here is that I can download the audio only file. Then I can move that into Obsidian as a note. And then, so let's say I go to today's note. And then I can upload the file, transcribe it, add my meeting notes to this particular note. So let's say we were, stand up, and then we wanted, it's always good to add the date. Sometimes it's redundant, but then with Obsidian, the way I can create a file, I just want to create a new, basically a new file embedded in this file, because Obsidian's about linking your thinking and linking these ideas together. So go into here, add the notes, add the transcript, and then use this plugin. Now I haven't set up it yet because it requires either a free self-hosted version that's a little bit more of a technical setup, or a subscription. I'm going to be working on the local setup, of course, because it's free self-hosted, and it allows for me to use not OpenAI for some things.
Okay. So it's ultimately AI. It's plugging into an AI somewhere. All right.
So that's
Well,
the first demo.
We'll see if how that works.
Yeah. So any thoughts, questions before we jump into now some of the news around Llama 3?
I could see how something like this might be useful for invoicing, which is I more and more I think it's kind of like the key app to making a decentralized shared equity organization work, is teaching people how to generate invoices, but then organizing them all in a one place for the group to see and provide feedback on.
Yeah, exactly. And when we can take unstructured information like we showed previous, and then create structure around it with topical headers and things, then once it's structured, now we can query it, and now we can do a lot more with it. So pretty excited.
So you're using a ramp. Does this also work for any other platform like Zoom or Google Meet or any other, or does it only work for Around?
No, so that's the beautiful thing, is that as long as you can get the audio file, it works.
Okay.
So
you have to plug in the audio file, whatever platform, into Obsidian, and then it will, on the free version, organize your notes, and the AI will help with headers and suggestions. Is that right? Did I understand that correctly?
yes.
Okay.
It's AI agnostic, so we can use OpenAI, we can use a local Llama, and it's I mean I'm sure there's some limitations on what audio file format works, but beyond that. So.
Okay.
Why would you upload both the audio and the transcript? Could you just upload the transcript?
Well, so let's look at it from like a court perspective. From court, the court has its own meeting, and then there's a recording, and so to be able to listen to exactly what was said in court rather than just the minutes can be quite helpful. And then being able to reference kind of the context of where it comes from, so that you have data integrity. It's kind of having a multi-format verification.
Right. So for anything where you want that record, it's not really for the plugin. Then, if I understand correctly, it's just a matter of record keeping.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. You if you wanted to, you don't need to upload the plugin or the audio file.
Yeah.
You could just copy in the transcript itself, and that's what makes this plugin super versatile. Is that it doesn't, with EchoScribe, it was always a question. Well, what if we don't have the metadata? What if we don't have the meeting information? What if we don't want the context? Like, all of that was, where do you start? You have to assume you start with something. This, you don't. You can start with almost nothing and still create structure.
Yeah, with EchoScribe, we'd give it a prompt, like we'd summarize the main points of the meeting, and it did okay. uh, Although at that time it was a little bit limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, but AI keeps improving. And I guess that's a segue to our next topic, right? AI keeps improving, and Llama 3.1 dropped last week, and Claude 3.5 the week before that, I think. So now we can compare the two.
Yeah. So let me. Yeah. I'll start here. Let me share my screen again. So this is a video I've added to the meeting minute notes. Maybe we add that as a description in Twitch. I don't know, but yeah, this guy does a pretty great technical analysis of both the Llama white paper, some of the novel things. I mean, to provide some commentary on his commentary of it, so you don't have to watch the whole 26 minutes. Basically, what he's saying is that Meta is giving away. They don't tell you anything about where the data comes from, in part because big tech has been scraping each other's data for so long that they can't say, hey, I'm using Twitter and Reddit data, because Twitter and Reddit are selling their data. And so there's, when you have ill-gotten data, it's like you can't really reveal it. But beyond revealing where the data comes from, basically Meta has revealed so much about all of the techniques and methods they've used to make Llama 3.1 an open source, very almost best in class model. As you can see here, it's beating out even Sonnet 3.5, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, in a number of benchmarks. And great, better than GPT and on most, GPT-4 across most.
And he's releasing the model weights, right? Even for the large 4.5 billion model, for all the models, right?
Yes.
So what's the significance of making the weights public?
So the weights are the parameters. The parameters are the model. Like when you don't need all of the training data. All you need are the parameters of the weights, and then from that, so there's three sizes. There's an 8 billion, a 70 billion, and a 405 billion parameter model. And as you can see, it grows in size. The biggest one is 231 gigabytes. And so if you want to run that nicely, you want to have 200. Basically, you want to be able to keep that in memory, so you don't have to page through all the parameters to quickly perform the logic. But also the smaller model is still pretty impressive and performant at the same time. Here's another. This is another benchmark showing how well Llama 3.1 is just basically between Claude and ChatGPT-4, Claude 3.5 and ChatGPT-4 on some of its benchmarks. And so now there's a caveat that there's concern about contamination. Once a model sees a test, it memorizes all the results to the test, and so you can't use those test results as effectively anymore. And so what AI researchers like this guy does is that he's created his own simple benchmark. Doesn't reveal it. He explains an example of what one of those benchmark questions might be and where they fell. So this allows people to start to see what the cognitive gaps are in AI. And here's the question that, by the way, most of these models failed. If you throw, Beth places 4 whole ice cubes in a fire at the start of the first minute, then 5 at the start of the second minute, and more and more. So it starts to create this math problem.
Yeah, but it's not really a math problem.
How many ice cubes exactly are found at the end of the fire? And
Yeah.
analytical AI that doesn't understand the real world, like most, because they only understand language and how we've talked about the real world, get this wrong. And they try to actually give it, like the answer is 20, right?
Yeah.
And so that's an example and so in his, what he calls kind of the simple benchmark, you can see that Claude 3.5 performed at a 32%, Llama, the largest model 3.1, was at 18%, and then GPT-4 Turbo was 12%, and Gemini, etc. So this was his own kind of simple, non-contaminated data set of.
Yeah. Now Claude's not open source at all, right? It's a
No,
just
it's
yeah.
closed source. That's
Yeah.
what makes this so amazing.
Yeah.
Is that,
Which means we can have our private AIs that are comparable to the big ones, which it's be interesting how that plays out. I'm not all that hopeful that the use of private AIs will really explode. I think an analog is kind of, the crypto networks versus Web 2, Facebook and Instagram, etc. Even though there's plenty of options for private social media, not very many people use them. But for people who want to use them and stay off the surveillance networks, they can. And I think it'll be similar with AI, where uh, if you don't want to be using a censored, surveilled AI for doing your research, you can do that privately. And I'm sure all the big corporations will be doing their research privately, as well as some astute individuals and groups. I already know an engineer who's not all that well resourced, but talking about building a dedicated machine just to run a large AI on. So there'll be more and more of those opportunities, I think.
yeah, it's going to be about paying for privacy and paying for convenience. For example, even the file organizer plugin, 2000s plugin I showed, you can self-host and use your own local AI, or you can just provide your well, what he's doing is he's creating a kind of a wrapper service where he uses GPT in the front end, and then you have to provide a license key for him. You can bypass his license key if you just self-host. But this is an example of how AI products are emerging as wrappers around just cloud AI like GPT, OpenAI. So,
Now, with this wrapper with File Organizer, the AI is running, well, it could run locally or it could run if you have an API key on any server, right?
yeah, correct. And
Yeah.
so this is where you can have it point when you do the local hosting option. You can tell it, well, the server URL, and that's a client then connects, and then you can configure that to connect to a local Llama server, or just your own device. You got to choose how to connect that.
So how long before people like me have ideas about applications I'd like to see, mostly Web3 applications, but I can't code. How long before I can write a Web3 application, say to do a voting for my DAO or something like that? Our DAO, I should say.
You can so you can write. The challenge is user experience, and that is, where do you start? Do you start in a browser? Do you start on a Windows machine, a Mac machine? Because the environment dictates do you have access to a camera? Do you have access to audio? There's driver level stuff that it's sort of that some systems have and others don't. But you can already do simple, user interface stuff. Sketch something
Yeah.
and then turn it into code. You can do the same thing with logic, and we did some demo with 3.5 Sonnet, but connecting it together and making it self-sustaining, making it actually into a product is where the skill comes in. Just creating a simple calculator that doesn't that you're just running on your machine.
So we're a long way from just telling the AI what product you want to build and having it build it for you, is what you're telling me, right? We're a long ways from that.
No, I think we're getting there I think we're getting there within years, if not months, just depending on the platform. So
Yeah.
I think it's coming. It's just it's part of it's about convention and deciding, if, for example, if an AI knows that, hey, everything is written in Python and everyone uses this user interface and this library, this framework in Python, then it's easy because boom, you know how to, and here's the deployment model. You just package it up this way. As long as you know how to connect it and architect it, the AI, similar to kind of these machines that are building houses these days. If you don't care, if you know how to architect and kind of line it up, then you can get the robot to do it. But if you're just sort of getting the robot to do pieces at a time, now you've created a bunch of Lego blocks that might not even fit together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the trade-off.
Well, that was sort of out of scope, but the next thing was the Obsidian
Contributors.
Obsidian Contributors Guide. Yeah. Let me share my screen so you can see that on around. If I can. Let's see, share. Sorry to my audience. I think that looks like it. Okay. Yes. Do you all see the contributors guide for ESC contributor? Yeah.
You see my annotation?
Yep. So tell me where to scroll and you can annotate as I scroll, I guess. See how that works.
Yeah. So the first trick is, do you have Git installed? And this shows how to get Git installed on your Mac down at the bottom, as you can see. So it doesn't provide a Git installation.
Oh, okay. I need to make this window a little smaller because it's actually not showing up on the Twitch stream. Can you circle that again? Obsidian Git. Okay.
First question is, I know you're on a Windows.
Yeah.
This is for a Mac. This is how you install Git for a Mac. And then here's how to configure it. And so that's sort of a prerequisite right now, because EXE is using a free Git sync model. So it uses GitHub to sync the data and provides kind of backups and stuff. So, which has its benefits. It doesn't use, the paid sync that Obsidian.
If I already have a GitHub account, that means I have Git installed. Then I can skip this step, or
it doesn't. Actually, not. Having GitHub account doesn't mean you actually have GitHub installed on your local machine. You need to install Git on every machine that you're wanting to set up and contribute to EXE with.
Okay, I think I have Git installed, but I could then just configure it.
So yeah, once you have that, then scroll up. And so yeah, this is basically kind of some of the basics of, download Obsidian, turn on publish, because this is, if you want to be able to not just sync, but also publish to the exe.fyi or notes.exe.fyi, then you need to turn on publish, create an account. You don't need to pay for publish. If you're just a contributor, it's just paid per site. So we have someone sponsoring that already.
Okay, so you turn on publish, but you're actually not needing to pay for the publish account because somebody else is doing that. Yeah. One of our members, one of the ESC members, is doing that.
And then what is sort of, once you get Git and publish set up, then the third step, and this is probably a gap right now, is how to configure Obsidian Git to connect those two things up. And so that's something that looks like either people have figured it out how to do it on their own, or they haven't gone through this guide yet.
Yeah, well, that's the configuring Git, which I didn't want to pay for another publish account, so I just stopped.
Yeah, but you don't have to pay.
But now I know I don't need to. Okay, so then I can go ahead and go through this Git configuration. It's a lot of configuring. 8 steps. These are just best practices. Okay, well, I will definitely try this and try to connect to the repository. So the shared repository is actually, is it on GitHub then for ESC?
It's on GitHub.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on GitHub.
Which is a little ironic for ESC since GitHub is owned by Microsoft, would you say?
Totally.
Yeah. But maybe someday it'll be moved somewhere else. Because we're not restricted to using GitHub with Obsidian, I believe. I think we can configure many.
Stop syncing using Git, and we could start syncing with some other tool. Now we'll lose sync history and some of the metadata associated with the syncing. But yeah, you can. This is a model by which we actually own the content and data, and then we choose how to sync it and where, and how to publish and where.
And every contributor has a local copy too. So even if Microsoft said, "I'm shutting you down," we'd all have our own local copies.
Bingo! This is a world at which we actually have where we don't have to always be online, where we can connect to the internet when we choose, how we choose, sync and download the data, etc., then go back and do our work. We can use a local AI or lose a secure facility that's air gapped and not connected to the internet to do what we need to do, and then reconnect and sync up.
Cool. And so what does ESC stand for, and what are they trying to do, and how do you think this repository is going to be used? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, go to the about. On the about.
Okay.
So EXC is a
README.
Well, maybe it's a little lacking there. Home, click the home. Try that.
Home.
Under control.
Are you home?
But
you are.
it's ESC stands for End Surveillance Capitalism, and it's it's basically a community and a work group that's curating and discussing, well, how do we escape this ad tech model where in order to create targeted ads, everything is trying to collect as much data as they can about you. AI and building these big AI models is similar because, well, there's a lot of social disadvantages to the surveillance capitalism model, and so that's the goal is to figure out how to understand that and mitigate some of the risks or circumvent it.
Cool. Okay.
And so this is a place for us to organize and collect content and information. Blogs. There's a directory of we'll be curating resources and things like that.
Yeah, and I once there's some material, then we can talk about collaborative publishing, like publishing it, say, on a Substack or a coffee page. But before we get to that, let's get an update on Regener8tive from Rosalie.
Okay.
So Rosalie, since we're recording this, and we'll publish it, so you might want to give a little background, just an introduction to who you are and what Regener8tive is.
Okay, so Regener8tive is a community outreach group that is collaborating to revitalize communities and societies. And we entered into an agreement with a landowner that has water rights, millions of gallons of water that they have that are available for us to do growing operations, and land that we can put innovative we call them microgrids. So we'll be producing energy, food, and water on these locations. And we came up a couple weeks ago and thought we were in agreement that we would come on land and start, putting our efforts in development. And then there was a little bit of a snafu that set us back a little bit. But today we entered into another agreement, and we went on the property, and everything was smoothed out. All of the issues that happened because of some misunderstandings were all resolved, and the owner of the land said, "Wow, 30 minutes has saved the day." Basically, thanks Rosalie for putting this all together, and he was all on board and was tickled pink and said, "You got as long as you need. You can stay on this property to do what you need to do, and I see the vision." And so he's super excited. And then
Great.
we were kind of having a little bit of a disconnect because Local Sparks is the development corporation, and their bylaws say that we in Regenerative is the community outreach, but both of them say in their bylaws, and that's a nonprofit, by the way. So, but they all say in their bylaws that the revenue that we generate will then be used to reproduce these regenerative communities and pay back the collaborators for the deferred work that they've done. And he said, "Well, if you guys are going to be making a profit, I don't think it's fair that we're donating this land and this water and then you make a profit and then not share back." And I said, "Well, I get that. However, we can't, uh, we don't mind contributing, like paying a charitable contribution because it's owned by a church. We don't mind paying a contributable contribution to you for the use of your land and water after we're profitable." And we agreed that it would be anywhere between 10% if they do nothing but just provide the land and the water. But if we start using their equipment and their workforce, which we may use their equipment, then it'd be 20%. And if we use their workforce, then it would be 30%. So as long as we, you know and I can identify what they're contributing, then we'll know whether we're going to be paying 10% as a charitable contribution back to them for their use of their land and water. And I feel like that's reasonable.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that sounds really good. And the fact that in your bylaws, uh, you're reinvesting in new communities and paying back people who have put in work, I don't see that as a for-profit thing. That's just simply letting people live, right? Sort of, you get the fruits of your labor. Now, what it means to pay back, there could be a question there where you'll need to have that defined. Uh,
Looks like Rosalie dropped. FYI.
oh, okay. Um, so hopefully Rosie will call back in. I think she knows
Yeah.
how to do it. Um, but that'll be that sounds really promising. It's going to take some capital to develop this property. Um, oh, there you are, Rosalie.
Yeah, sorry, someone called me right when you were talking. So you said that seems reasonable.
Yeah, yeah. I was just saying how regenerative and local sparks, as you described the bylaws, so they don't sound to me like regular for-profit corporations. In other words, you don't have a bunch of investors putting in capital that are then going to get an ROI at the expense of the workers as much as possible, right? So you pay as little as possible to your workers and then pay as much as possible to your capital investors, which is how a regular corporation works. Uh, what's the difference with the corporations that are going to be developing this property?
Well, what's developing the property is the Local Sparks, which is a B corporation. So our first priority is always for public benefit. That's in our bylaws. Once we prove that we've done public benefit, then we start to pay our workers deferred, and that would be based off of the contributions. And some of the contributions, most of the people that are contributing either have a for-profit or nonprofit also entity themselves, and we would work out some type of, what is it, scope of work that they would be doing, what would be the deliverables. And once we have a profit from their efforts, then we would.
Oh, we lost her again.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next topic then, and if she drops on, we can wrap up
Yeah,
on that.
we could wrap up. Yeah, sure. I just wanted to mention coffee, or do you pronounce it Kofi?
Yeah,
I'm
can
not
you
sure.
stop screen sharing? You're still on the EXC.
Yeah, let me stop, and you can screen share. She's back. We lost you again, Rosalie.
Because everyone keeps calling me. I mean, can't believe this. I just sat for listening to what you guys have been doing intently. And I was like, great, nobody thinks I'm working right now. Nobody's calling me. And then as soon as I start talking, I need to put silence on my phone or something so it just kicks them over to
Yeah,
voicemail. I need to do that on my phone. But anyway, we're all keeping track, and part of the caveat is 4 hours every week. Everyone doesn't get paid for 4 hours of it. We're just trying to showcase how much can we really get done with a lot of collaborators offering 4 hours a week of expertise. But after every 4 hours, then people are tracking it, and then pro rata, that's where I'm having an issue, and that's why I want to see how you guys are doing it, is invoicing. And when they invoice, it has to be approved by accounting that we're in agreement that what you're doing is what we value and that we see is what we want to have done. Because if you think that spinning circles, is of value, but we don't see that doing that is of value, then we don't want to have
yeah,
that.
exactly. So it's
So
sort
we
of the
want,
review process will kind of set the character of your organization. If
right.
you have like one person or one committee approving all the invoices, then
Yeah.
that's fine. That's everyone
No.
knows who that person is. Another approach is to have it open so that everybody sees everybody's invoices, which has its own advantages and disadvantages. And then you can do something in between. Um, but I think transparency and accountability for that invoicing process is going to be key. Um, however it's set up.
And how are you? So I wanted to find out how you guys are setting up yours currently. I noticed that you said, you still have some bugs to work out with that, but I wondered what you guys were using to do that. Um,
Well, we're
for
going to use Obsidian. I don't know if that's the right solution for you because it's a little more
technical.
of a learning curve. So
Yeah.
you might want something simpler, like a Paperform app or something like that, which would be pretty easy to set up. There is a subscription cost with Paperform, but that's something we could talk about offline if
Okay.
if
Yeah.
if
So
you'd
that's
like
what
our
we're
help.
looking for, is some
Yeah.
way to accounting that. And then we're just using Signal, so Regenerative Alliance. They come into that, and the question is to come into Regenerative Alliance, is there a way that we can add the mutual confidant and the peace, principles group? um, do they have to agree to all three groups, or is there a way to merge them all into one group under Regenerative Alliance, so I don't scare off people who are just not tech savvy like myself, too, not tech savvy, that think I got to join all three of these groups? I mean, is there a way to just have them join one that says that they're in compliance with the peacekeeping and mutual confidant solution?
You could just basically do your own standalone organization. The reason WikiWe is organized that way is so that um, you can have these peacemakers and confidants that you can interact with, whether or not you're doing business with them on a project, right? So
Mm.
the idea is to create sort of a larger pool, one of just peacemakers, one of peacemakers and confidants, and then you'd have individual projects within that are connected with some administrator, whether that would be Ricardium or it could be local Sparks, but someone that's taking responsibility for the accounting, for the money, for that group.
So can you help me with that, Johnny, to see if we can meld those into one? So when they join Regenerative Alliance, they're in agreement that they are going to abide by the other two uh, charters that we've talked about.
Yeah, and
Can we?
we are updating our agreements to our WikiWe agreements, so there may be a way, if you're amenable, to keep. So when they join Regenerative, they could get a WikiWe membership, and they would just have a different channel address. But we haven't worked out we really need
Okay,
to
and then
sit
we
down
will,
and talk
and
over the
we'll work,
details to get that
right.
worked out, right?
And what we want to do is use Recardium until we have 1,000 or 1,500, I think we talked about. So we would pay you to do the accounting to start with. And then if you wanted to, we could section out at some point when it became too cumbersome. And then if you wanted to but still do the accounting, but not through Recardium, we would figure out a different way to do that. So it makes sense for you. So I want to just, uh, you know, offer whatever it is that I need to do to make this as simple as possible. But we need to button down the hatches because we're gonna take off
Yeah,
here real quick. So it's,
yeah. The
yeah, I
idea
was
is to
waiting.
have each project its own, to have its autonomy to choose their own administrator and go and form their own other entities. Um, since you already have entities with money, I do need to get on the horn with you privately to talk about how we could arrange that so everybody's happy.
Okay, that sounds good. And then on another note, I got a call from the person who was having that funding that's coming forth, and they did meet with the attorneys and the escrow officer. They've complied with everything, and on Wednesday, they're getting back on the with the escrow officer that's holding the funds because they were waiting to find out what kind of taxes that they have to pay since the funds have been accruing, interest payments, how they're going to pay taxes and to who. So that was the difficult part to figure out internationally because it's an
Oh,
international tax question. So
yeah.
this is moving really nicely along. And I said, okay, so if you guys get this resolved by the 31st, which is the deadline for them to finish, otherwise it will go into another anyway, it'll be done by Wednesday because it doesn't behoove anyone. It'll cost it both parties to pay another month of an escrow account, so they want to get it out of there as quick as possible. So either today, tomorrow, or Wednesday, it'll be done. And then I said, how soon, once that money's left that account and goes into your account, would we be able to get funds? And they said within 15 days. So I don't know if that's 15 business days or 15, calendar days. But anyway, let's just say by the end of August or the middle of August, we should have enough funding to pay for the help that we need and organization and the platforms that we need to propel us forward. And that also includes, EXC Press and CoronaWorks and WikiWe and Ricardium to move forward with the platforms that you need and the help that you need to make it. And I don't know if you want to just help us and see where we're needing additional help that then we can pay you guys to do it, and we can be kind of like, I don't want to call ourselves the guinea pigs, but you could show how working with you guys, anybody who's got a blonde CEO like me can work with someone as technical as you guys to get things done that I wasn't able to get done. So, and then be a poster child and a testimonial for how well it works to work with you guys. So I'd be willing to do that and then pay you as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Probably we don't want to get too much in the weeds right now, but I could see, yeah, it sounds like it's moving pretty fast, and you and I should coordinate, I think, on the administrative stuff, just so we have um, a
when's a
proposal
good
worked
time?
out. I'm pretty free this week, so this is good. Just let me know when works for you.
How is 10 o'clock too late to call you tonight, or do you work late tonight? I just
I'm just not very good late at night, and I'm trying to
okay,
get to bed earlier. So
okay.
I'd
I'll
rather do it in the morning or
Tu-
afternoon.
Okay, Tuesday. Let me look at the calendar and see what you have. Okay, I'll text you or signal you on Tuesday sometimes, and you just tell me which one you want. I'll give you like three or four different options, and then you can tell me which one works, and then I'll get put you in my calendar.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks,
Okay.
Rosalie. See
Yeah,
things
thank
moving.
you. Very exciting. And good
Yeah.
luck with all of that. I hope that all turns out. And it's been it's been a long time waiting
And I
and
think that
working.
sort of covers number 5, which is cultivating neutrality, and building strong communities. And so
Yeah,
just want to highlight
keeping the
wiki.
keeping the That's a kind of a longer topic. We're out of time. I think for this time we'll have to roll those over to another show. Uh, but I think cultivating neutrality it's an important thing because we're all used to taking sides on every issue. Most of the issues being fake ones that we shouldn't really even care about. But even on issues that do matter to us personally, it's just learning how to cultivate neutrality is really important for community health.
Yeah. So the way I would conclude is that right now, when it comes to cultivating neutrality, like in some ways AI doesn't have emotions, and so we're using it in learning how to use it in some of our governance, and how to and improve our communication is one aspect of that. But also, as we talked about, at the end we were talking about some different entities and things like that. WikiWe is a neutral collaborative publishing platform where we can um, both blog and curate, different um, plugins and articles about, um, and then ultimately organize ourselves and documents and agreements and things like that, so that way we have sort of a neutral place for publishing information that then can be used to build on top of and create either more public or more private principle-based communities.
Yeah, totally. And well, of course, we've been working a lot on organizational documents and how to integrate with the so-called real world, but
Existing
the
platforms.
business world as it exists today and the legalities that we have to deal with. Um, so we've had a couple of revisions of organizational documents, and now we're on to sort of our version 2.0. Uh, I finished. I went through everything and finished all the key documents this weekend, so that's ready for review. And uh, somehow in the back of my mind, I feel like AI could compress this thing into 2 pages. Um, but I but maybe someday. But not right now. Everything's there and all the components that we're familiar with, but just uh, dealt with in a more subtle and more universal way, so that projects and license hubs and what have yous that join WikiWe, that join that Peacemaker Compact and that uh, MNDA, the Confidence Agreement, that the as that pool of people gets larger and we have more confidence that everyone in there is a real person and they've all been vouched for by somebody. Um, there's more flexibility of how people can arrange their affairs and still receive the benefits of being administered by a WikiWe compliant administrator who knows how to do things in a neutral way without favoring a certain for-profit corporation.
Did you, Johnny, did you get a chance to look at the holacracy, I guess I would say democracy, it's
Holacracy.
holacracy.
Yeah, I
Holacracy.
saw that. I do want to look at that and definitely want to give that. I've looked at Holacracy before, and I need to refresh my memory on what that is. There is a problem though in translating. So if a governance like a DAO governance for making a computer network, there's a it doesn't translate exactly into a human DAO, because there's the thing about when you're trying to build a computer network, the metrics are really easy because you can see who's running a node, and you can see how many tokens they buy and sell, etc. Everything, the measurements all taken care of. But in a human DAO where we're contributing labor, we're building a farm or a spa out in the desert somewhere, it just doesn't work, that kind of metric. And that's why some of the things that we've been talking about are necessary. So that said, I mean, I will look at Holacracy with an open mind and see if they've come along,
Okay.
and see how that
The,
might work for us.
the Independent National Union was organized under Holacracy a couple of years ago, and so I've gone through that organization process. I can tell you it's not, uh, there's some onboarding and administrative overhead for sure, and there's
What would
also
you suggest? So do you feel like it just using the WikiWe or the Ricardium preamble or charter would be easier?
It just depends on what the goal is. The difference. So in holacracy, it creates protocols for creating new teams and breaking your, basically creating this holonic organization um, that has ways of, as well as kind of merging them together and organizing things that way. WikiWe, or more specifically, like the Peacemaker Compact, doesn't touch on how do you organize. What it talks about is how do you resolve conflict based on principles. So you could plug that into holacracy. I'm not sure exactly how to yet, but for certain types of conflicts, for example, you use the holacratic method of identifying friction and having a certain meeting and deciding what the root cause analysis is or whatever. And I'm rusty on holacracy, so might be using the wrong language. Whereas if that doesn't work, for example, then the Peacemaker Compact can be a fallback, which is a much better fallback than getting.
But it has to do with regenerative, like you're helping with the platform or whatever. It's helping both regenerative and WikiWe at the same time. So 4 hours a week is going to be easy for you because it's just going to be doing what you're already doing anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not asking you to donate just 4 hours a week just to do something for regenerative. But if someone like, John Doe, who isn't really doing anything on his own, but he's really interested in helping with accounting for regenerative, but he's not doing anything on his own that we need for regenerative, then he would need to donate 4 hours specifically just for regenerative, because whatever he's doing doesn't make sense that we would say that was 4 hours of collaboration if it didn't have anything to do with us. Maybe did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it would be easy for you to get involved and not add any more to your shoulders. You're
Yeah.
already doing it. Okay.
Yeah, I think, Bry's already doing the work easily.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's cool. I'll look at holacracy and I'll give you a time tomorrow that we can talk.
Okay.
And
I
we'll,
put it in I said anytime before noon, so I
Yep.
sent you a signal already.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Have a great
Thanks
evening,
for joining.
guys.
Okay,
And
thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
well, everyone, until next week.
Until next week. Bye.
La 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 la